Good evening, everyone. We welcome you all to Ortho TV online original webinar series. This webinar has been brought to you by an unrestricted educational grant from Dr. Reddy's Lab, the makers of Nice Gel, Ultra Nice and Umis. Today we have my very good friend and an eminent hand surgeon from Mumbai and Thane. He is Dr. Parag Lad. He is specialized in hand and reconstructive hand surgery. He has his own hospital by the name of Pinnacle Ortho Center, and he is also an honorary consultant as a hand surgeon in Jupiter Hospital in Thane. So he's going to talk about a very interesting topic, which we see but is highly mismanaged in the early days of the young orthopedic surgeon. Infection in hand, diagnosis and treatment dilemma. So over to you, Dr. Parag.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Neeraj. So today, being an orthopedic hand surgeon, I am very sure this webinar of 40-45 minutes is going to help you to at least not to miss the infections in the hand and infections in the hand or in orthopedics lightly. So viewers here, do we have any diagnostic dilemma when we see such cases like a pneumonia on chest x-ray and when we see a frank abscess mandibular region or a region as the photo picture shown in this? So here we are very sure that this patient has an infection and they need at least antibiotic or intervention in the other parts of the body. But when we see this picture, and here we definitely want to really have a look on all five and understand where exactly the problem is. And here the problem was around there is a swelling around the PIP joint of the little finger, and even X-ray will show a soft tissue swelling around the PIP joint of the little finger. There is a flexion deformity on the X-ray at the PIP joint of the little finger. So this is called PIP joint synovitis in the finger, and this patient had a tuberculosis infection. So I want to give you a guiding, idea about how to deal with the infections in the hand. As we all know, the principles of tumor surgery and in the hand or infections in the hand, they have more or less similar principles. As the point number one mentioned, tumor surgery is done only after evaluation and imaging is complete. Exactly on the similar ground, when we have a evaluation of the infection in the hand by X-ray, sonography, and sometimes MRI, then we can plan a surgery. In tumor, biopsy tract has to be considered as a contaminated with tumor cells, and then we act accordingly. In the infections in the hand, if we do any biopsy or if we take any culture from the wound, please take it from the wound itself, or the if it is a our biopsy mark should be very close to the wound or that abscess. Then, as we do in tumor surgery, wide exposure and excision of unhealthy tissue, it has to be done in the hand infections as well. That if the tendon is looking unhealthy, or many times being orthopedic surgeon, we have a dilemma. If I excise more skin, then there is a closure will be difficult. Will need a flap cover, something like that. But then, whenever we do a surgery for like tumor, we cannot keep the drain away from the wound. We have to keep the drain from the or within the wound. Do not get contaminated. And a last important point is whatever we send for histopath has to be sent for culture sensitivity test. So let us take example. This is the most common infection that we see in the hand, that is called acute phyllon or paranoikia. So many times we have a dilemma whether these infections will be cured with oral antibiotics or do they need surgery. Like this, they are very painful and they don't become all right with such simple antibiotics. So we have to drain the pus. Now, second important point, and where to take an incision. So whenever we see a infection around the eponychial region, we have to sometimes remove the nail. Unless you remove the nail, the pus from the eponychium will not be drained and the infection will be kept recurring. And sometimes the infection is so much so that they have a pulp tenderness also, and in those cases we, so whenever you see a phyllon or acute paranoia, nail. Now, before we move on to the different infections in the hand, anatomical bursa in the hand and wrist. Nutshell, I would like to tell you that thumb flexor pollicis tendon is an isolated entity. I mean, through one single sheath. But infection in the hand, all four digit or in the palm, they form an ulnar bursa, and the infection is carried forward into the distal forearm. That I will show you an example. So this was the, at the age of 20, he was on dialysis, known case of chronic renal failure, and he had a picture like this. Compromised immunity, and there was a burst in the tenderness on the metacarpal hand. So apart from infection, he also had a compartment syndrome. So such patients, we have to do incision and drainage. Not only is the treatment, but we have to release the compartment syndrome also. So abscess IND is not the only treatment for such patients. So we have to release the compartment on the dorsal side and release or debride the infection on the palmar side. And because of low immunity, they usually have healing issues, but they heal wonderfully if the vascularity of the hand is adequate. Such patients, we have to keep explaining them that healing is going to take its own sweet time, but please keep moving. So in spite of wounds on the hand, if we advise them doing movement, they can achieve a better function. Another case, that diabetic hand, infections in the diabetic hand. So in a diabetic hand means there are two problems. First of all, there is a peripheral vascular disease and poorly controlled diabetes. So they land up with the gangrene of the digits, and usually upper, now as shown in this picture, there is not only a dry gangrene, but there is a palmar abscess as well. So such patients, they require multiple debridement. But in those cases, we have to take a call whether, I mean, considering amputation. Again, remember, considering amputation does not suffice the problem or does not control the infection. So they need repeated debridement. It is because of low immunity, very, very poor. And second part, it is not only the infection, it is also a ischemia to the hand because of the peripheral vascular disease. So whenever we have a patient with uncontrolled diabetes, with poor blood supply, with gangrene, please warn the patient about requirement of multiple operations. Now, case number 5. Many times we see mosquito bite leading to infection. You see this hand, there is very localized swelling, there is a redness, and the swelling is on this side. Infections are nothing but infection. They are called suppurative flexor tenosynovitis. Here the infection is into the flexor tendons, and they need wide exposure. So never bombard any too much oral antibiotics or IV antibiotic, and they usually need proper exploration and debridement. So this patient, I had done exploration from insertion of the flexor digitorum profundus till A1 pulley, from the flexor sheath was excised or removed. Usually these infections are staphylococcus or streptococcus infections in acute scenario. So whenever any hand surgeon or any orthopedic surgeon treats infection, we must remember Canaveral sign of infection. If you know this sign, you will never forget the infection in the hand. So how to diagnose a Canaveral sign? There is a uniform swelling in the finger. If you see, the little finger has a uniform swelling. The finger is held in flexion attitude, and restricted flexion or passive extension is always painful. And localized tenderness. So uniform swelling, localized tenderness, and passive extension is painful, and flexion attitude. These are the 4 Canaveral signs of infection. Proper drainage. Another important aspect of infection in hand surgery is iatrogenic infection. I understand that trigger release, carpal tunnel release, or a decurvance release, these we consider as a minor operations in our portfolio. When we are talking about high velocity trauma and humerus femur or acetabulum fixation, these operations we definitely care but do not value much. So such infections in a post-operative period are also very, very common. So this patient had undergone a decurvance release operation, and see in excuse me, and you see that patient, because it was carelessly done, patient required adequate exposure and excision of the entire unhealthy tissue and debridement. So eventually that patient healed, but the message again here is please do not neglect or do not take minor operation. There is nothing called minor operations, precaution for the same. So I want to show this case. This patient, young lady, presented to us with history of cricket ball injury. Everybody thought there is a hematoma around it, and the patient was treated with oral antibiotics. But whenever we see such infection, they are nothing but infection. So always don't forget to consider a blood investigation for such investigation. And this patient was proved to be a case of tuberculosis, and we had to start the treatment of AKT. Excuse me. Okay, another case that I want to explain, that in apart from acute infection, there are chronic infections in the hand. He was a farmer by occupation, and if you see, the entire was completely absorbed, I mean resorbed, and there is annulating wound here. He had this part of infection like this for more than 5 years. He was working in a farm, and then when we took a X-ray, there was complete resorption of the distal phalanx. So I had suspicion of malignancy, and then when I took a opinion, they suspected a fungal infection also. So if you see this picture, because of this chronic infection since 5 years in this finger, patient was unable to make a fist, and there was a complete stiffness in the proximal interphalangeal joint and in metaphalangeal joint. And this patient amputation, because we wanted to send the entire phalanx or entire digit as a biopsy to rule out malignancy, showed any malignancy, osteomyelitis of the distal phalanx. But the ray amputation solved his purpose, and then he was able to make a full fist. So sometime amputation in a digit treated for infection can prove to be functionally very, very beneficial. Another case that I want to discuss, it was like post fall, the patient was an injury at the distal part of the thumb. There was redness along this region, and there was redness along the thenar region. If you see the picture left, the dorsal aspect of the hand, there was an injury at the tip, and then if you see a shiny structure and the redness here, that means there is a frank suppurative infection along the extensor poly. And when you see the picture on the right, there was suppurative tenovitis infection along the flexor pollicis longus tendon. So such patient also need both dorsal and volar aspect, and unless you debride them very thoroughly, the infection will keep recurring. Now again you see there was like a acute, I mean the fingertip was completely inflamed, and there was a extensor pollicis longus infection with infection around the thenar region. And look at done where we removed the nail. Then we did the debridement of extensor pollicis longus tendon. Then we did the debridement on the flexor pollicis longus. And because the thumb pollicis longus carries one sheath, carpal tunnel, unless you drain the pus from there, the infection does not cure. Sometime if the tendon is complete by the infection, please tendon. And then this was the pulp debridement with tendon debridement. But eventually, if you see, the infection heals wonderfully in some time. Okay. Now, such type of pictures we will see. Okay. So if the vascularity in the hand is good, then adequate debridement, and by considering primary closure with tack sutures, these wounds usually heal very beautifully as shown in this picture. Now I want to highlight another important case, that this case was referred to me for cellulitis. And whenever we get a call for swollen hand with no significant history of trauma, usually what happens, this patient come to the hospital. By looking at this picture, they take a X-ray, and these X-rays are sometimes normal. Then they tell the doctor that, doctor, there is a patient of cellulitis, come and treat. So when I asked this patient history, this patient had a swelling after when he banged his hand on the pole while traveling in a train. So it was a high velocity trauma. But how to differentiate a cellulitis from an infection? Now see this picture as the palmar aspect of the hand. There are bluish discoloration of the fingertip and there are blister formations. So blister formation is not a sign of infection. It could be a sign of infection very late, but then this is a picture of a compartment syndrome, or this is because of the cellulitis or compartment syndrome. So these patients, usually we have to ask 5 P's: pulse, pain, pallor, paresthesia, and paralysis. These are the 5 P's. If they are present, we have to treat them so adequately. This is not infection. We have to consider adequate fasciotomy. So here I have done dorsal fasciotomy of the metacarpal region. I have done individual finger digital fasciotomy by mid-neutral approach and dorsal of the forearm incisions. Then carpal tunnel including the distal forearm. This much adequate fasciotomy we have to do to save the hand. In spite of this best effort, the patient had lost the digits, the terminal digits, but then other wounds healed eventually. So now unusual case scenario, let us take an example, like 23-year-old worker, very well nourished, no past history of any COX or any medical comorbidities. He had 2 months duration of painful wrist, and he used to get carpal tunnel syndrome symptoms in the right hand, mainly at night. There was discharging sinus on the left wrist. So now such patients, now we have to diagnose them very well thoroughly. There was no history of trauma. So as shown in the right side picture, visible, no external wounds. On the left side, there was a discharging sinus from the volar aspect of the carpus. And when we investigated them, this was the hemoglobin was 8, ESR was raised, Montague's test was positive. And if you see the X-ray on the right side, it is reasonably normal, but the X-ray on the left, there is a osteomyelitis in the carpal bones. So such patient required a MRI. So when we got the MRI done, so there was a capitate osteomyelitis and Montague's positive, ESR 76. Now on MRI, there were multiple foci of chronic osteomyelitis in the carpal bone. See, the capitate is involved, the hamate is involved, trichotrum is involved, and when we took the MRI of the right wrist, if you see, these are the granules seen on the MRI. So such patients usually need exploration and biopsy. And here we have to rule out whether they have infection or they have, arthropathy. So the plan was total synovectomy on the right wrist and curettage of the capitate and send the culture, the material for the culture. So now if you see, how do we adequately expose the volar approach? By a volar approach, what I am touching is the roof of the carpal tunnel or a distal forearm fascia. This is the median nerve, and this is the hypertrophied or hypertrophy of the tenosynovial tissue of the flexor tendon. So when you completely open them, that the synovial hypertrophy, we found a rice granules. These are the rice granule that are seen. So usually these are not the signs of any arthritis. These are the signs of tuberculosis. And when we adequately debride them, we have to see, so we have to see the complete explore, all the tendons should be completely thoroughly, the tenosynovial tissue thoroughly should be excised, and then tendons are made free. So once you do that, the post-operative period was histopathology was sent for the right wrist, and the culture sensitivity and histopath was sent for left wrist. They come out to be gene expert was positive, and the patient was responded very well with the AKT. So the patient who had a reduced weak grip, and a chronic discharging sinus of the capitate, everything healed after adequate debridement. You cannot even make out any functional deficit. But remember, surgery is not the only game for this patient. These patients we have to keep with ourselves for very, very long rehabilitation, because they need to be monitored. Otherwise, having reflex sympathetic dystrophy or CRPS is very common after such a extensive hand surgery. Another important case, it was a very unusual case, and we have actually written an article also for it, that this lady had a bump on the ulnar aspect of the metacarpal region. And when she presented to me, she was 42-year-old, and she says 30 years back, when she was 11 or 12-year-old, she was operated for a polydactyly. There could be some extra finger here which was excised, and now she presented to us with 6 to 7 months duration painful lump and reduced grip strength. So we did the sonography to confirm, whether there is some hypertrophic growth of polydactyly. That was normal. Her X-ray was pristinely normal. And then, because it was a painful, unexpected growth and the size of the growth was increasing, we decided to give option of exploration. So when we explored, so these were the tissue that were excised from the exploration. And to my surprise, we got the benefit from our PG teaching that whenever you excise something, you must biopsy, and whatever you send for biopsy must be sent for culture too. To our surprise, that lump was tuberculosis. So this is also has to be kept in mind, that tuberculosis can present by any means in our body. And 2 months post-op, her pain subsided. Of course, wound healing was not at all an issue, and there was, it was a tuberculosis. So extrapulmonary tuberculosis also, presentation in the hand is like full-blown infection, which I will show a case now, or completely out of basket picture. So let us take this example. 35-year-old female, the only problem she had chronic anemia, and she had different palmar abscesses, chronic abscesses with sinuses. So much bad that she was unable to make a fist. 35-year-old lady with 2 children at home. The family was refusing her to allow her to work in kitchen because she had abscesses on the hand, and nobody wanted, food served by her hand, because they used to think the infection will spread. So we consider a MRI. Always remember how to read a MRI of hand, that tendons will always look gray in color and pus will look white in color. So what we did was extensive exploration, extensive debridement, and then after debridement, everything was, entire pus was taken away. And of course, as I mentioned, I always close primarily all the wounds in the hand. Though I don't do a watertight closure, we do a tack suturing. But please close. I mean, that is my philosophy, because if we allow palmar wound to heal by secondary intention, they heal by scarring, and by the time patient, they do not use their hand. So tack sutures, extensive debridement was the key, and early mobilization. So whenever you do the tack suturing and ask the patient to make a fist, whatever is drained left out inside, that come out. To our surprise, look at the function. And this was, the lady who has not used her hand for 4 or 5 months had excellent function, excellent, with primary intention, only one surgery, extensive debridement. And now family is also happy. She herself feel happy, but it was a cox. It was proved to be proper tuberculosis infection in the hand. Another important, many times we see such wounds, and these patients will always give a history that because of, in the, in the anger or this thing, they bang their hand on the wall and they get this wound. So this patient also gave me the history that I banged my hand on the wall and there was a CLW which was sutured by family doctor. Always remember, in your, whenever you examine somebody, if there is a wound on the metacarpal region of the hand, that wound is never ever because of any, trauma or banging the hand on somewhere. These wounds are because of the human bite injuries. So these are called punch bite injuries. This gentleman must have attempted to punch somebody on the face, and that person's tooth has, he hit on his tooth and the saliva must have been entered, and there is a local infection in there. And such wounds, they require adequate debridement. So this wound was presented to me like this, and X-ray was showing frank osteomyelitis of the metacarpal head of fourth metacarpal, and we had to do extensive debridement. There was a stiffness, but these wounds cannot be neglected lightly. So any wound seen on the metacarpal region, please, unless proved otherwise, they are human bite infections. So we have to treat them very, very adequately. The last case that I want to tell everybody, that never take any hand surgery casually. Disasters are not uncommon in the hand. See, this was the simple decurvance release. Patient had undergone a decurvance release, and post-operatively there was a redness. There was severe paresthesia in the distribution of the superficial radial nerve, and patient was extremely in painful condition and unable to make a fist. So this was the frank infection of the decurvance stenovaginitis surgery. And again, as explained, whenever you see an infection in the hand, please get a wide exposure. Do not treat the infection locally by, and then when do adequate debridement, adequate debridement. So here what I found, the decurvance release was adequate, but there was significant unhealthy tissue of infection around the both first extensor compartment, APL, EPL, and third extensor, I mean second extensor compartment, and we had to do very extensive debridement and remove the all unhealthy hypertrophic tenosynovial tissue. And look at this picture again. So here the superficial radial nerve, we did the neurolysis of the nerve, and all the three tendons of the first extensor compartment were excised and made free, and then we primarily close the wound and look at the function at some adequate time. In 2 months time, she had extremely normal hand function. These wounds heal very beautifully, or in a primary intention, if you adequately debride their hand. So absolutely no functional deficit. Her CRPS recovered also adequately. So here, now how is infection in the hand is different. It can present completely not like an infection. Like I show you the polydactyly case and turn out to be tuberculosis, or like I showed you cellulitis, which was considered like a cellulitis, but it was a compartment syndrome. Or like I showed you the metacarpal knuckle wound, which was not wound because of banging the hand on the wall. It was wound because banging the hand on the tooth or human bite injury. Then it can present like sequelae of previous infection. If you do not adequately debride these wounds, they may prevent as a recurrence of infection. It may lead to gangrene as vessels can slough out in infection, especially in a diabetic hand where we take the wounds casually. So because of the peripheral vascular disease or because of the infection or gangrene, the vessels also, the digital vessel also gets slough out, and then fingertips can go into gangrene. And surgical intervention, it is definitely challenging because of the anatomical close continuity of the structure, but there it is in infection in the hand almost always required surgery. They cannot be treated conservatively. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Parag.
I thank Dr. Neeraj for this opportunity. I am happy to have a discussion.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Parag. So basically, what I have learned over the years of my hand infection is that never attempt.
Sorry, I cannot hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Can you just see if your volume is right? Because mine is full.
Yes, now I can hear.
Yeah. So the one thing which I have learned, and also basically from my own mistake and from others' mistake, is that never try to solve the hand infection under a local anesthesia.
Yes.
What is your opinion regarding this?
Yes, absolutely agree. First is never under local anesthesia and never without tourniquet. You do not exsanguinate, do not use S-march bandage, but use proper elevation, but always apply tourniquet.
And in an infection, normally what they say is that whenever we are doing these massive infections in the lower limbs, we don't give antibiotics because we want the right culture. So what do you do? Do you give antibiotics when the patient presents to you, or do you just first start the antibiotic and then take the patient for surgery? How does it work?
So most of the time patient usually are on antibiotic, at least oral, when they come to us. But if it is not a limb salvage situation, if somebody is on oral antibiotic, we stop it and then plan the surgery after 48 hours. And then we don't give antibiotic before the surgery. We give antibiotic after releasing tourniquet and after collecting samples for the cultures. And once the infection is not in the bone, then we don't treat them like a osteomyelitis. If the infection is in the phalanx or metacarpal head, then the 2 weeks of IV antibiotics and 4 weeks of oral antibiotics is the mandatory rule.
So now the one of the interesting cases you showed was that you have done this tenosynovitis of the thumb. So you did a primary closure. The wound healed was very good. So you did a primary closure in spite of being such a bad infection.
Yes, yes. The problem is there is no fat around the metacarpal region or a hand region. So if the tendon gets exposed, they almost always land up in adhesions with the exterior wound. Or whenever then function is never going to be possible. If you cover these tendons, then they have a smooth gliding surface, and then the function is definitely retrievable.
And what about that compartment syndrome? When did you close that?
So compartment syndrome, usually once the edema is settled and when we see post-operative dressings, we try to close the wound by hand. And if there is a closure possible, then we close, and that to 1 or 2 stitches, and that I do it after 1 week. I keep the I don't close for a week, because after 1 week we take a consent for closure with skin grafting. So whatever is essential.
Okay. And do you where do you use VAC in hand? Have you ever used VAC in hand?
Yes.
Infections or anywhere else?
Yeah, I have used VAC in hand, but the problem is because of the web spaces, to have a adequate suction, we have to keep the full, all the fingers have to be covered with the plastic cover. And that's why the problem remains. Then once you remove the VAC, the skin gets macerated, stiffness is inevitable. But I have done VAC dressing only in 3 patients, but ultimately they'll end up in an amputation. So I don't use nowadays I don't use VAC, because my adequate debridement, probably you may have to do repeat debridement, but if you want to use the VAC, it has to be at least, away from proximal to the knuckle area. But whenever if you have to digitally involved, then VAC is not a good idea.
So there are 2 cases which I'm not sharing the photographs. I'm just sharing the cases where basically I had a complication that was in very early stages of my practice. One was there was a wood chip which had gone in the volar aspect, and the patient came to me and I tried to remove it under local. In spite of successfully removing the wood chip, patient did not have any relief of pain and swelling. So after looking at your presentation retrospectively, I feel that he had full tenosynovitis of the finger, and then he underwent a second surgery somewhere else.
Yeah, true.
So
or we have to rule out digital nerve injuries. If we miss those injuries, their pain will not subside, wound may heal. So cause of severe pain could be the neuroma pain from the digital nerve injury. So they need adequate exposure again. And then usually they become.
So whenever we are in doubt, we have to just open up passively, like a radical incision.
Extensive approach. Tell the patient that I don't know where I will take the incision. Of course, we know, but tell them that you may find 1 or 2 more incisions on the hand. You may find the extension of the wound at least double the time up and down. That is essential for complete debridement.
The second most horrible which I have seen, though I have basically, because I saw after that 4-5, so I could manage to correct myself, is the puncture injury from a paint spray.
Yes. So they are called chemical high pressure injection injuries. In those patients, the entry site of the wound is very, very small, and usually it is difficult to convince patient that you may need a bigger approach. These injuries cannot be treated by local anesthesia, have to be given general anesthesia, and the full course of the tendon has to be followed till you see a healthy course of the tendon, because it's a high pressure injection chemical injuries. So it is never at the, so I have seen them when patient had an injury at the,
that is the most common place actually, the second web space.
Second web, and then it has spreaded up to the distal or middle of the forearm. It requires adequate exposure, and many times it may require repeat operations, revision debridements. Yes.
So that is the most important message, I think. Basically, these hand infections should never be taken lightly. Ke chalo, the patient has come in the OPD, I'll try to open it and see. And these paints are seen very well on X-ray spread out. So basically, it is very easy to explain to the patient that it's all spread out inside. You'll have to open it up. And patient requires multiple surgeries, sometimes up to 3. First 2 debridements and second coverage.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Parag. I think that's all from my side. And we thank from Ortho TV, Dr. Parag Lad, who's, if you can see, is still hard working in the hospital. He's still in his scrubs. And we hope to see you soon again in our next webinar. And we hope to meet him personally. I have not met him for almost a year now.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. And good night to all of you. Thank you. And bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.